Hello, if you bought the Spirit Board embroidery kit, then this is your tutorial. We're going to be working with some DMC embroidery floss in various colors today. And embroidery floss comes in 6 strands. Today for this kit, we're going to be using mostly 2 strands for every stitch, except for the brown. For the little letters of the alphabet, we're going to be using only 1 strand. So make sure that you pull off either 2 strands or just 1 strand, depending on which color you're using. We're just going to go ahead and jump right in. Let's start with the sort of golden orangey color. You may have a different shade than I do, just depending on what I was able to procure. But they should be roundabouts this color. So I'm going to start by just pulling my needle up. I've already got it threaded and knotted for the occasion. And we're going to be doing the back stitch. So we're just going to make our initial stitch first by going back down. And then we're going to go back up about a stitch length away, meaning about the same length as your first stitch. We're going to pull up, and then we're just going to stitch back towards the initial stitch. And then we're going to go up again, leaving that room for the stitch, and then we're going to stitch back towards the last stitch. And one more time. As you can see, I have this about 95% done. That way you all will be able to see what it looks like when it's finished, or roundabouts. I know yours will look a little different than mine, just because you will do each stitch just a little bit differently, but I want to be able to show you all of the stitches needed. So now we've got this, and the length of the stitch is really up to you. You can do shorter, tighter stitches, a little bit longer, or like for these, I do them just 1 stitch for the length, but now you don't have to. You can, if you would like, you can just do little stitches just like what we did. But I just kind of wanted it to pop a little bit, so I just decided to kind of do it that way. Just go ahead and come up through this one for this line, for this little sun. So we've got the sun and moon and some lightning all in this same color of thread, and so you can see for these I went longer, and these I went longer, but then I went with smaller stitches for the moon. So it's really up to you and what you like best. I'm going to come off camera here and tie off my stitch so I don't bump the camera, and then we'll move on to the next stitch. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the green. I get my needle here, and you can see that the letters have these short little stitches in each one of those. So first we can do the bottom of the Y here. So that's our first stitch, and since this is also technically a back stitch, you can just come up at this joint and then stitch back toward that first stitch, and then come up here at this joint and do the same. We're going to stitch back towards the last stitch. Come up here, stitch back again, and and then come up and then stitch back again. And again, I've done these bigger stitches just so they're a little more bold. It's just my preference, but you could make little tiny back stitches for all of this all along the way if you'd like. It's really just up to you. It's 100% preference. So let's work on the E here. So I got this part. It just comes up a little. And then we'll come up here, this joint, and then go back towards that first stitch. And we'll come up here. Go back towards the last stitch. I'd love to know why you chose the Spirit Board embroidery kit. It's definitely one of my favorites. It's definitely one of my favorites to design for sure. We're going to come up here and come down to finish off this side of the E. Go back and finish it off with this one last little part. These long stitches really do make it so easy to do these letters. So this is a beginner friendly kit, so if you are a beginner, I would say this would probably be a good way to go with the longer stitches. Let me go ahead again and I'll tie this off really quickly and we'll go on to the next. Getting probably pretty comfortable with the idea of doing the back stitch. Let's go ahead and we'll do the brown because that's pretty much the back stitch as well. Before we go on to some of the more creative stitches. This is really, again, since this is used like, this is beginner friendly, really wanted some foundational stitches in there. So we're going to start with the X. And we'll just go towards the middle for our first stitch. Again, we're only using one strand of embroidery floss for this. So once we got that first stitch, we're going to go up to the side of the top of the X and then go down towards the middle again, then go back down here towards the middle, and then at the top again, and as you guessed, towards the middle. So we're going to go on to the Y. Started here where it branches out, and then we'll come back up to this other side, go towards the middle, and hit the bottom of the Y here, and then back up towards the middle again. There we go. Now we've just got the Z left. So we'll do this little arm of the Z. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and cut halfway between the Z as well. And go back up towards that first stitch. Come down here to the bottom. Go towards the middle, towards that last stitch. And then on this little arm here. Come back towards that last stitch, and we've got it. Pretty simple. I'm going to tie this off. The back stitch is so simple, really versatile. It's a great place to start, and it's an easy way to go and really make any embroidery look really good. All right, so let's go ahead and do something different now. Let's go with this kind of steely blue gray color, and we're going to be doing a couple different stitches for this. For these little lines that are supposed to be sort of like the wind, we're going to be doing the stem stitch. So we want to make a stitch kind of like how we would start with the back stitch, and then we would bring it down and we would come up through the middle of that stitch, staying on the line, and just go off to one side. Really, the name of the game for this is just making sure we stay. We need to choose a side. So the yarn is going to go on this side, so we'll make sure that it stays on that side. So we'll go up again, go off to the side, we'll go off again, another stitch, go in the middle, and then off to that side. And then let's go ahead and do this last one and do the same thing, and that way we can practice just a little bit more. So we'll come up through the middle of the stitch and then go off to, I'm going off to the right. It creates a really nice kind of stem effect. Kind of get a little tighter with my stitches as I go around small curves. I just find that it helps me out a little bit. So go in between here. And so yeah, with the stem stitch, just stay consistent as long as for each section you're going off to the same side. And that's really what it's all about. So like if I turn it this way, that way I'm still off to the right, as you can see. Okay. So the next thing that we need to do, because we have the stem stitch here for that gray color, is the middle of the eye, because that's actually going to be a different stitch. That's going to be the satin stitch. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. What I like to do when there's a circle is, I'm going to unfurl my thread a little bit there, is I'll sometimes just cut it in half by just putting a stitch right there. And so really what the satin stitch is so we've got our first stitch, is we're just going to come up right beside, or depending on what, where you're positioned, right above or right below where you're going to be doing the satin stitch, and then going right up to the top to meet that other stitch and being right beside it. It's just one straight stitch right beside the other, or above or below the other. super simple. I used to be kind of intimidated by this stitch, but there's really nothing to be intimidated about. It's really as easy as that. So I've made half of the eyeball, so I'm going to come over here to the other side. And you can start literally like left to right or right to left. I don't know why. It's really an arbitrary thing. I just like to start on one side and split it down the middle and then go back to the other side. It's a divide and conquer thing, I guess, for me. I don't know. It's what I do. Okay, so now we've got the middle of the eye, and I'm going to go ahead again and just get this tied off. Then I think we're going to go ahead and do some more of the stem stitch, because the gray was a little taste of the stem stitch, but we didn't quite get to see as much of it as I would like. So all of this white is stem stitch as well, except for maybe these who are just like a little straight stitch. Just 1, 2, 3, and then 1, and then 1. Super easy, just like the letters. But let's go ahead and start with the stem stitch for these. I'm going to start here on this side. Again, we're going to go up through the middle of the stitch and just decide which side you're going to stay off to. Alright, I'm going to untwist my thread off camera here so that I don't bump the camera, and let's go ahead and do this section as well. Stem stitch, it's uncomplicated, but it looks great. It's pretty easy to do. That's what I really love about it. Like, if you can do something beautiful without giving yourself a huge headache, that's always a plus. Pulled through a little knot there, and that pulled out my thread. So let me get this rethreaded here, and we'll resume. There we go. Alright, I'm going to let that twist again, or untwist. And then let's get these little parts here. the same thing, except for I'm just making a little shorter stitches since these are just a really tight area. There we go. Would also like to know in the comments if you want, if you have any ancestors who have the that have the skull with the wings on their tombstone, headstone. I know that I have some that have the wings that have like there's like a little human face. I don't really like those as much, but I do know that I have some ancestors that have those. But I don't know that I have any that have the skull and the wings. That would be nice. Those are so cool looking. That's why I really wanted to include that in this design. Okay, gonna finish this off, and then I'm gonna tie this off, and then we'll work on the last part, which is the coral around the eyeball. So let me go ahead and I'll get this tied off real quick. Alright, let's work on that split stitch, which is the coral, and then we'll be done. So for these two littler ones on the outside, I just do one little straight stitch, just straight up from top to bottom. They're really too small to do anything otherwise with. And then the split stitch, you just make a stitch and you come up through the middle, kind of like the stem stitch, but then you split, you go in between those two pieces of embroidery floss with your needle. You literally split the stitch. So let's do this some more. So come up, make a stitch, go up through the middle, and then put your needle in the middle of those two pieces to split that off. So we'll do it again. There we go. Let's keep going. So have you ever used a spirit board, something like a Ouija board or something of that nature? That's something else I would like to know too. I have not. Coming from the deep south, people are always like, don't you dare. Even though it's, you know, a piece of wood or cardboard or whatnot. But I guess it's the intention behind it, huh? But I always had the pants scared off me by, you know, all of the horror stories that people would try to tell, which I think are probably much worse than the actual item itself. Okay, we're getting done. So I'll do one more of the split stitch. Let's just go up between those two pieces of thread. There we go. And that last stitch, remember, we're just going to do a little straight stitch again. Okay, so let me go ahead. I'm going to tie this off and then we'll look at everything as a whole. There you have it. Oh no, there we don't have it. We have one more stitch to do. Let me see if I can just get enough of this coral thread. We're gonna get the coral thread. Over here we have a little French knot. We don't want to forget about that. So we've got another one here. So you do a French knot by going up through the middle of the dot. You go twice around with the needle. You come back down through, kind of pull it taut just a little, and then let the thread go on through. So let's do it over here too. Okay, go around twice, come back down through, kind of hold it kind of taut. There, now we're done. All right, so this is about what it should look like. Again, like it'll be a little different for you since you're a different person than I am, but I hope you really enjoyed. Bye.